Hello and welcome to the new edition of the HbbTV webinar series. It's a great topic and we've got great interest, despite this being a very technical topic and despite this being in a very hot summer day over here in Europe, and lots of people are on holiday already, but don't worry, if you can't watch this live, there'll be a YouTube recording for you as usual. We'll be talking about reference tools and applications, and there are important tools to verify conformance with the specifications and the standards. Quick look at the speakers today. We have Bob Campbell, Global Head of Conformance and Interoperability at Resilient. Mark Riley, Senior Architect at Everyone TV. Everyone TV we all know from the recently launched Freely service in the UK. Alex Russell, Controller of Technical Partnerships at Everyone TV. And we have Mirko Nedolskis, CEO of Sweetest, a company specializing in remote testing facilities. I'm happy to moderate the session as usual, and as usual, a couple of formal things. First, the presentations will be made available on the HbbTV website for you to download after this session. I already mentioned the YouTube recording, and as usual, there'll be a Q&A at the end, and so please submit your questions while the presentations are running, and then we'll collect them and jointly look at them in the last 15 minutes of this live session. As usual, the disclaimer first: the presentations represent the views of the presenters and the companies they represent, not necessarily the views of the HbbTV Association. Now I'm happy to welcome the first speaker, Bob from Resilient. I'll quickly turn you into presenter and then you can share your screen, and we're very keen on hearing from you. I think you're not based in your HQ in Bristol today, you're in Brussels, is that all right?
Yeah, I'm in Hasselt, in our Hasselt site in Belgium today. So hopefully it's nice and sunny and very hot here too, but I've got the aircon on.
That's good.
Right.
Okay, we don't want to see you sweating on the screen. Thank you very much, and that's your presentation.
Okay. So a little bit about Resilient. We are a total quality services company. We provide quality assurance to the sectors that we work in, from assurance, cybersecurity, and conformance and interoperability. We have a global presence, particularly in Europe, in Asia, and in North America, and we work with a lot of different organizations within the media sector, from content producers checking quality of the films and programs that are made in Hollywood studios and beyond, into distribution with operators, and then into consumer devices, and ensuring that they're able to receive the services and the apps and the content that everybody wants to watch successfully. I wanted to just do a little bit of background first on just what we're talking about today in context of what conformance is versus interoperability. So as probably everybody in HbbTV is well aware, there's a conformance test suite that has been developed over many, many years, more than 3,000 tests. They're all designed around testing aspects of the specification, and tend to be thought of as unit testing. So they're a very important component as a foundation for building services that work, without checking that an app can rely on the APIs or the functionality that's defined in the specification. You've really got no basis to start. So this is a really important foundation, and I would strongly recommend that the organizations looking at how they might use reference apps don't assume that reference apps can solve all of those problems, because you will find very quickly that you spend a lot of time trying to work out whether a device even supports a feature or not, whereas the tests that exist already help ensure constant coverage of a set of minimal requirements and features in the spec. So it's a very important piece, but it's not enough. And one of the reasons why we're here today is to talk about the additional types of testing that help with applications on top. And that's really where reference app fit in to provide better interoperability. So it's the system level testing, the integration testing, if you like, that pulls together the device, the service, the content, maybe the distribution mechanism, all of those things in one piece to try and flesh out and make sure that as a complete system, the user experience that we're looking for is achieved. So HbbTV provides a set of things that help with that interoperability. As I've mentioned, the receiver conformance test suite, the reference application, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. It also operates interoperability plugfests, physical events where people get together with app developers, receiver manufacturers in one place and try and make sure that their systems work together, the development apps and the in-development receivers, and then a content validator, a dash content validator that helps make sure content is correct and conformant with the specs. And this is trying to sort out all the different types of issues that might exist in the field. So what is a reference app? What is a good reference app? The idea of a reference app is really to demonstrate HbbTV features that are intended to be used in the field, in the market, linking them together. So probably building on a set of APIs or a set of specification requirements and actually implementing the user experience and the user journey, not in a kind of fully fleshed out way, but in a referenceable example that is clear and easy to understand. And those are kind of some of the really important aspects of a reference app compared to the production app that you might deploy. So I listed a couple of the criteria for reference apps that I think are really important. Firstly, that it's really easy to understand what the expected behavior is supposed to be. Assume that the test community that is using this won't know how your app's supposed to look and feel and what the good looks like. So you need to be really clear either in the way the app is designed or the reference app is used, that you can see where it's working and where it's not, or that you've written down documentation or user journeys that you're expecting the app testers to be able to complete. Also, it's got to be available. So it's really important. You've got to remember a global supply chain with organizations themselves having multiple sites across the world contributing to a development of a device. And it's got to be accessible wherever the test device may be and wherever the test developers may be. So geo-blocking that might be applied in a production system is really unhelpful. Blocking devices because they need certification to get the production app is okay in a production world, but doesn't work for the testing end. There are obviously challenges with bandwidth and so on. So one of the things we'd recommend is working with a lab to help facilitate that kind of accessibility. The other aspect is the stability of that reference app. So in a production environment, you might not be changing things that often, but you probably have a workflow that's releasing features to the market out of cycle with necessarily what the manufacturing device release cycle is. And that's a much longer, slow burn release cycle, more on a quarterly or even annual basis. And what testers don't like is their test environment changing under their feet. So being different when they come to run it the next day from when they ran it yesterday without knowing why. So really thinking about how you have a workflow that supports that in terms of putting a test app out there, but not then changing it every 5 minutes, or at least being able to communicate the changes to be expected. It's worth saying something here about best practice here. So for example, all of the HbbTV tests are unit tests, but they are actually built up on a kind of compound of service material, so streams, reference apps, in fact, so little example test apps that run on the device that execute the API and interrogate the device and get the responses back. So they actually build on the building blocks that might be necessary for a reference app, and so can be scaled up to a more complicated set of transitions and sequencing together various API calls and implementing a more complex state machine and user story. So this is really more just a question of scale. And there are lots of examples where those apps are starting to get more sophisticated, those tests getting more sophisticated to exercise more complicated features of the HbbTV specification. Something that a reference application might do is start to layer on additional libraries that are relevant to the production application, bring the look and feel that you want, and start to exercise things like the performance of the device, so the memory and the speed and that kind of thing, that are less easily covered in the HbbTV specification, for one thing, and are not nearly as always as objective a set of requirements, and are very much more operator specific. So there's good reason for doing that, and obviously those are very important aspects from an app developer's perspective and from an operator perspective. They are more difficult to define objective, and a lot of thought needs to be put into thinking how that will be communicated to the system, the ecosystem, so that it's clear when a test passes and when it fails. So even better best practice. So HbbTV went ahead and created its own reference app, focusing particularly on DRM use cases to help make sure that it was clear how to use DRM in the market. And I'm going to try really hard, if I can, to quickly show that in the real world. So over here we've got the landing page for the reference app, and you can very easily open up. If I go to the testing instance. Sorry, this is on another screen, which is what I'm looking over there. You can see the app there, and then it's very easy to navigate around the app. In each case here, we've got a set of different scenarios, and they execute different combinations of stream with DRM, without DRM, and with different types of DRM. And then we've even got live, multi-period. So we started extending this beyond the pure DRM cases into some more interesting live examples, and we've been looking most recently at captioning and subtitle support. It's very easy to sort of get this up and running on a device. There's a launch stream provided under the link that I opened earlier, and it's very easy to sort of see what good looks like, because it's really, does the stream play? Does it play properly to the end? And if you start playing one of these, it will start launching usually one of the well-known videos that everybody uses. So that's the reference app. Interestingly, from a project perspective, one of the other things that we did when we did the reference app was also provide the code. So there is also code for this on GitHub, and it's a real reference app in that sense, because it provides all then of the source code in order to provide examples for people to see how this is implemented and replicate that in their own platform. And from a reference perspective, that's really helpful, both for the developers of devices to see what's going on when something isn't working, but also for other developers to use as a reference point. So this is a true reference app. It's a really good example of best practice. I should have highlighted, actually, as you can see, we've got different versions. So the testing version is updated very regularly with new features as they get through the development phase, and is made available to anybody that's interested in seeing the very new features. Then when they've been matured a little bit, they move into the staging version, and then finally, after a period of a sort of few weeks of approval, we update the production instance in line with the test suite release 3 times a year. So there are 3 releases to production in March, September, October. Sorry, June's the middle one, and then September, October. So that's that part. And then if I just go back to the right screen, it's that one, isn't it? Yeah, there we go. yeah, so this is just a bit more information for reference when you come back to this later. It is possible to add third-party content into the reference app. So if all you want to do is extend the existing functionality with some of your own example streams or your own example use cases, there's a mechanism by which we've agreed to do that. There are a way of tracking issues with the app, so the manufacturers can raise things that they're not sure about, which is a very important aspect of all of this. You've got to have a good mechanism for feedback and handling the support and questions that come in. And you can see the usage over time of this app in the bottom. One of the other things we do is run this across a zoo of devices from the market. So, sorry, my slides are a little bit out of date on the numbers because we've got some 2025 models in as well now. But this zoo is always updated with new devices and the app is tested against them. And you can see sort of over time an improvement in the number of issues as we've evolved it over the years and starting to see fewer and fewer cases of things not working on the apps. So this is our good example, our best practice reference app in HbbTV. And a lot of organizations have their own apps and have developed their own reference versions of their production devices, production apps, sorry, and in a moment, Alex and Mark are going to talk a little bit about Everyone TV's example. Another thing that we've done, just trying to get onto the next slide, there we go, is extend the Plugfests into a virtual environment. And this is something we just did really recently, last week. A group of 3 manufacturers got together within our Shenzhen lab. Brazilian Shenzhen lab is obviously well placed to communicate with those manufacturers in China who don't normally attend the physical Plugfests and for whom it's much more difficult to participate in those events that take place in Europe. So we've got together with them. We work with Mirko and Sweettest to instrument their devices and make them available to app developers and operators in Europe and get that overhead of making all of that work down by using one site and overcoming some of the logistical challenges through only dealing with one location. And it was a very successful event. I think people sort of found some of the challenges of getting these kind of things working. They're very challenging, even with all the best kind of technology in place. It's still quite an involved process, but it was possible to start executing apps on devices, and I think it's a really good example of what's possible now to extend app testing around the world to make it more easy for the earlier an app is part of the testing process, obviously, the more likely it's going to be supported, especially when we're talking about performance requirements that are probably baked in early in the development cycle. So a quick word on how to incorporate reference apps into certification. I think I can just repeat some points I made earlier just to re-emphasize that. It's really important manufacturers know what they need to do to pass. It's really important manufacturers who are running this as part of a broad test scheme where lots of other platforms involved. This is not the only environment that they have to comply with. What do they need to do to pass? Is it clear? Is it obvious? Is it observable and objective? They need to be supported with triage for issues and questions. So they need expertise on hand to answer all of their questions, which can be a headache and a scalability problem for a lot of HbbTV developers and operators. Obviously, it needs to be stable as well, can't be a moving target, and it needs to be accessible wherever the testers are, not really just where your app's being developed, but where the manufacturing is. So our strong recommendation is to work with a partner lab to help overcome some of those logistical challenges and to help with the communications and overheads. And that's my part done. Please do contact me if you'd like to know more. And now I'll hand over to Alex and Mark, think first.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Bob. Very interesting to hear about how the reference test applications work and your experiences with them. And what's lying ahead. This remote testing event, I think, was quite interesting to reach out to new colleagues. Now, I think the presentation is now, thank you, Bob, run by Mark first, and but running from Alex's system. So I'll quickly turn Alex into the presentator, and Mark's already here. So let's see whether that is working. So Alex, if you could share your screen, and then Mark is probably happy to go through the slides. By the way, before I forget it, please submit your questions through the question toolbox to Bob and all the other colleagues, and we're happy to look at them at the end of this session. Now, stage is yours, Mark.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, all good.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a quick presentation about the specific complex use case. It's the op app. I'm not really going to go into too much detail about what an op app is, because I could quite easily, use up an hour just talking about that. So it's a specific use case. It's the secondary video window op app, and which is what we're using. We're totally reliant on for the Freely service, and basically op app is taking over kind of core terminal areas of functionality, and including playback of IP channels. So this app started life as a kind of proof of concept. It was developed actually in parallel with the spec being defined, so it was a way to jumpstart or bootstrap development work, so a manufacturer could actually start to sort of work on this as quickly as possible. It's not really a conformance app as such, because it is a moving target. It does evolve. It does have new features as we want to try different things. It has different things of prototyping and proof of concept work. It exercises new features. Also, it is designed to help a manufacturer sort of debug and develop against. So it is hopefully clear and easy to use, easy to set up. It jumps over a lot of the hurdles in order to access content, etc. So hopefully a manufacturer can hit the ground running. So yeah, first of all, what is the secondary video window? Fundamentally, it's a way of allowing the terminal to show IP channels. It's a way of decoupling the kind of life cycle of the op app, which can sort of sometimes show guides, sometimes going to disappear and go to background states, etc. With video playback, which you'd want to have playing all the time whilst the user's watching it. It's got to coexist with the terminal as a whole, and with the regular apps, and it's been designed in such a way to try and minimize the impact on a manufacturer to support. So yeah, next slide please, Alex. Excellent. So actually it's effectively two apps coexisting. There's the main window, which is the op app, which typically would show the guide and the MIDI guide, etc., and the user interface to the user. This is what this proof of concept looks like. So it's very simple. It's got a simple info bar along the bottom, and a debug window, which is showing what the op app is actually, events it's receiving, etc. Then if we pop to the next slide, this is the video window. So you can see the actual video in the background. You can see it's got subtitling as well. So it's got a graphics plane, and also it's got some additional debug information. So next slide. I warned Alex I was going to be rattling through these very fast. So and what happens is the terminal needs to bring these two discrete apps together to display them. So that there is an ordering, a Z ordering of the various planes, starting with the op app, and then there's the regular app, and then you've got the video window, and also the graphics window for subtitling. So this is all put together, brought together, composited by the terminal, and you get something like the next slide, Alex. Yes, so here you see that then as far as the user is concerned, they will see this kind of a whole image showing the video and the op app and the video window all coexisting. So next slide, please. So yes, the playback. It relies on -js. It opens up the entire freely channel lineup. So there's at least 150 IP channels available to the manufacturer to work with straight away. Yeah, the playback is via the video window. It plays dash content, DVB dash. It has DRM capabilities of SL2000 and SL3000. It can handle temporary or persistent licenses, and yes, it relies on MSC and EME and uses -js. We're currently on version 4.7.4, but we're looking to move to version 5, so we're currently looking at that in parallel. So yes, next slide please. So yeah, this is just an example. I'm not going to dig into it, but of how the video window communicates to the terminal and vice versa. The video window it's not a very, it's not a huge API. It's the bare minimum to support video playback. So there's notions of reporting the status, the playback status, so the video window can tell the terminal where it's currently playing within the stream, and the terminal can also control the video window. So for example, it can tell it to select a channel, and it can tell it to stop and resume and set window size, etc. So this is the communication. It's using JSON RPC. The API is based on this, so it's relatively easy for manufacturer to add support for these additional APIs. Next slide. So the communication relies on sockets. The part of the ORPF API provides capabilities which tells exactly the ID or handle for the web socket, so the terminal can report to the app exactly how to create the web socket. The op app typically will just open up at the video window. There's a special tag which is called op app video, so the terminal knows that this is a special window that's been opened. It's relatively easy for the app to create this video window. Next slide. Here's a example of something that the app does in order to negotiate, kind of request the functions that it expects the terminal to support, and so this way there's a clear negotiation of of methods which the app will be relying on, and a mechanism that allows the terminal to report exactly what it can and can't do. Next slide. So an example is a terminal could send the select channel a call, and it has some core details in, for example, the broadcast ID, and the video window would receive that and would be able to then start up playback, and then the video window can then report its status, its playback status. So it can actually say, right, I'm now presenting playback. And this ties in with HbbTV, so it ties in with the broadcast supervisor object and also the video broadcast object. So the state of playback is shared with the op app and regular op apps. In fact, the next slide, please. So this is a rather confusing screen, I must admit, but quite a lot is going on. This is showing the coexistence of the op app with the video window with a regular HbbTV app, and the regular app is seen on the left. It's the green text and the blue window, and it's communicating directly with the video window, well, via the video broadcast object, and it's taken control of the scaling of the video window. So you can see the top left, it's actually the regular app has actually scaled the video windows size using the kind of defined HbbTV or OIPF APIs. So this is, yeah, a rather complex use case. Quite a lot's happening at that point. Here we have this app also reports various playback metrics. And it reports back to a sort of centralized server, so we can monitor playback. And you can see the sort of various different devices. Each color is a different device, so you won't be able to see very well, but broadly speaking, yeah, you have a color per device. You can see the buffering state, the current selected bit rate, and also the how close it's playing to the live edge, and the playback rate, the memory usage for each device, and a kind of a sense of sort of CPU headroom and playback start time, etc. So this way you can start to. This is used by a test lab to get a clear picture of just how well the devices are actually playing back. Yes, so here's an example of when testing a stream as opposed to a device. It's showing that a real issue that we've had where by the actual ad content hadn't had set cores properly, and you can see that things are playing quite nicely. Then you get to the ads, and then there's a cliff edge where all the devices fail, and if you look at the log, it would then sort of say, well, okay, there's a cause error. So it's quite clear that there's a stream issue. Final slide. Here's another one just showing a kind of contended network and showing how devices are kind of fighting over this restricted network to kind of have stable playback. So the you see the buffer size changing, and also you see the representations, which actually would be the more interesting diagram, to be honest, for this use case, showing how the Dash.js player is selecting different representations based on the available network bandwidth. So yeah, that's a real whistle-stop tour of what this is doing, and yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much for this deep dive into the Everyone TV reference application app. And we'll be now hearing from Alex, who's already on the screen with some further information on the test and conformance of app.
So we, as part of our Everyone TV Freely Conformance program, we created two test op apps. One, Marks, that you've just heard about, which primarily focuses on video, and the second, which focuses on all the other aspects of op app APIs. So this is really an API test application, and we call it TACO because it's the test and conformance op app. And we've done our best to abstract out of the real usability, user-facing aspects of an op-app, and focused more on the API calls that are delivered to and from the terminal by the application, and wherever possible, we remove the video playback and just leave that to the second video window op-app. So it's two parts really. Taco, it's a test application which is a real op-app and implements the HbbTV 1.2.1 op-app standard, and it is also a test runner, so it downloads packages of tests and allows the user to run them. This is the Taco main screen, and as you can see, it's pretty simple. We've got an information area on the right, which helps you understand what your device has tried to do, lets you check the S-locks and L-locks that have been launched, and also see that whether your device is properly recognized by the op-app. And the idea really is that we provide as much on-screen feedback as possible, and some is in the console as well, so you can see all of the logs there. If you click on the Run Tests button, what you find is a package of tests. So that's downloaded at runtime, and so we can update tests without releasing the application. Each test pack contains multiple tests, and they can be run individually or as a group. And on the screen there, you see the log window, which presents you with all of the errors. So in this case, we've run a test and it passed. The test execution screen, some of the tests are not entirely automated, and some of them require the user to provide some feedback. Like in this case, it's simply checking whether the time on screen is accurate. So there's a bit of user feedback needed sometimes, but the goal is to try and make this as automated as possible. It identifies quite a lot of issues, so it will when Taco tries to use an API, it will first check whether the device implements it at all, make requests to it, check that it gets a response, and then start validating the object parameters and properties in that response. And we do find a lot of cases where early devices, a certain API might just be stubbed out. It might be returning -1 or null in cases of some of the values rather than the mandatory field values that sort of fit within a range, and we pick up a lot of stuff like that just simply by running through these tests. So that is very much a whistle-stop tour of Taco. This is a conformance tool, unlike the second video window app. This is actually a conformance tool, and the manufacturer partners who are looking for the Freely trademark have to run this application and validate everything that's in it, and then report on the test pass rate, and we work through as a normal part of the normal conformance process. Finally, the final thing I will say is that I'd love to invite anyone who's interested in joining the study mission group that I'm setting up for test and conformance apps, TACA, helpfully named to not confuse anyone. The role of TACA, it's a study mission group set up by HbbTV, and we're going to be summarizing and looking at the current set of test apps that exist, and then working on how reference apps can be better incorporated into HbbTV and what further development might be needed, looking at the business aspects as well in terms of licensing and validation of these applications that are made available to the wider community. First meeting there, as you can see, is going to be 30th of July at 11:30 a.m. And if you check your HbbTV emails, you shall find a meeting invite to help you join the group. Thanks very much. That's the end of my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you for these insights. And of course, you're welcome to join the new SMG. And if you haven't received anything, just let us know at communications@hbbtv.org. Mirko, time for your presentation. Rounding up this circle, and we're keen on hearing from your latest experiences with remote testing.
All right. So
I'll
please let me
quickly
know if something.
turn you into presenter, and there you go.
Thank you. All right. So I hope you can see my window.
Yes, it's there. All looking good.
Okay. I'm sorry if it's not perfect. All right. So I want to report back from the interoperability event that we had in Shenzhen together with Resilient. Bob already mentioned it. It was last week. It was the first ever Plugfest and APAC, so it was kind of a day when history was made. A little bit about Sweetest. We are actually not specializing in remote access of devices, but we are an OTT test automation company. We help test apps, but also operating systems on TVs. For example, we work with Titan OS and Whale TV. They test also their operating system with our solution. So we have a global presence, and you can tell by the logos and by the description that there are many different type of customers that we serve. So, and as I mentioned, HbbTV is one of the OTT platforms that we support. It is actually our best supported and platform. We started 11 years ago building our test automation solution for HbbTV apps, and have over the time rolled it out on every device where you can consume OTT content or streaming content. So our strength is in object-based test automation on living room devices. So the event took place last week. There were 3 manufacturers present: TCL, Skyworth, and TCL Mocha. And we had app developers and network operators connected to us in Shenzhen through our Sweetest UI. Here you can see an image of our kickoff meeting, where we were communicating with the people on the manufacturer employees on the ground, communicating and saying hello to the people in Europe and other places. So this is set up. On the left side, you see a retail device. On the right side, you see a pre-production model. So in total, we had 8 TVs from 3 manufacturers. Those were Android and Fire TV OS devices. And so we tested 8 different HbbTV Freeview apps, but also on top one Android app, which one of the app developers wanted to check, since there were already, since all the devices were supporting Android or Fire TV. So the setup, here you can see a screen of what the participants remotely could see. They had a virtual remote control. They could remotely control the devices in Shenzhen. They would see the full screen of the TV. In this case, we streamed through our Android camera phone application. It's a simple app which you can install on mostly Android phones, but I'll get to this later. And we also have for streaming from HDMI out, we have a so-called Wingbox, which is an HDMI capture device, which then can deliver lossless video quality. So the participants had the possibility to fully control devices. They on top saw also at the bottom of the screen, you can see there are logs. They can see network and console logs, which are sometimes helpful. What we set up in the background was a dedicated streaming server, which was close to the location to reduce the latency. So we had a very low latency, between 100 to 200 millisecond back to the UK. We had to ask the app developers to add IPs, to whitelist them, to make the app available also in Asia. And there were also proxy servers involved to enable some features that are provided with our tool. So what were the test cases? Mainly people were testing the UI, but also streaming tests of VOD and live video streams were tested. There was a special use case of an application where there were two video streams running in parallel, and also certification tests like this one of the BBC was run on pre-production models. So an interesting use case is to put retail next to a pre-production model and then to see and feel how they are different. So those were the test cases. So what was the feedback from the participants? They liked experiencing the live view of the devices and the possibility to chat with the manufacturers. They liked the idea of checking pre-production models with their either live app or an app which is in development. They want a bigger range of manufacturers so that they have a higher or bigger coverage, test coverage. And there was a comment that some person who never used Sweetest before had difficulties in the beginning, but then figured it out quite quickly because the interface was easy to use. So we will then, for the next event, prepare demo videos and some tutorials to make this a little bit easier. More requirements were to provide device specs like the exact operating system version, the processor or chipset, the memory, and the browser type. And also the app developers could imagine having different events for each manufacturer, not everything on the same day. It was a pretty condensed event on one afternoon, and yeah, maybe that is too exhausting and something that we can adjust to in the future. So from the manufacturers which were present, we heard that they want to test more and they want to run automated tests. At this event, the only automated test was basically the one that BBC was doing, but the manufacturers want to test as many apps as possible, and even if those apps and change, which mean that automated tests can break, they still think it will be beneficial to them. They also expressed the desire to have a permanent setup at their premises and to use this for different use cases and also beyond this single event. And they also mentioned some use cases in terms of certification and collaboration with customers and that they could use this for. Also, they really enjoyed the direct communication with the app providers, and I think that can be extended further. So, that was too fast. Which lessons did we learn? It takes, especially for this initial event, it took quite some preparation effort. But in the end, it turns out that you can basically do anything that you can do during a physical plug fest, and so it was a successful testing event. I mentioned in the beginning that you should prepare and test. We figured out that the phones which we got for the streaming were actually not fully 100% Android compatible. So this is why our camera applications sometimes show the black screen. So this is something that we can fix for the future and also test more intensively ahead. As in physical events, the network setup is very challenging, and we did a lot in terms of setting up VPNs, proxies, whitelisting of IPs, and but this is the same as mentioned at a physical event. If you go to Italy or Berlin and your app is geo-restricted to UK, then you have the same issue. So what we achieved with this event is to extend the range of manufacturers and app developers attending such an interoperability event. And so these Chinese manufacturers, they usually don't travel to those physical events, and this was a good opportunity for them to get into contact with the app developers and have the real apps tested on their devices inside China. So as I mentioned, good planning can condense the events, but maybe they should be split into smaller kind of single dates for single manufacturers. But this is still up for discussion. And in the end, it's about sustainability. Sustainability is a big topic now in our industry. You heard the term greening of streaming. So in this case, no travel was required. I had to go to China anyway, so this is why I've been there. And with this topic of sustainability, I want to close my presentation. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mirko, for these insights. I think it's very good to learn about the experiences you made with this remote testing event, and also learned a lot about your company. And nice to see you've been working with HbbTV since the early days, and you've got a couple of really good and well-known reference customers. So thank you for this update. Now I'd like to welcome the other speakers to the stage. So please activate your camera and microphone while I'm sharing the questions that we have received during these sessions, and let us welcome everybody back. Here you are, and move to the first question, which is directly targeted to Bob. The participant says, I agree that objective definition of performance is difficult, but it can be defined in the specific cases. Do reference applications have intended or supposed performance?
I think it's really a question for the individual applications. Yes, there are implied, Mark's presentation went through quite a lot in terms of examples of the kinds of measurements that were being made in the app to verify performance. So I think by most sort of intentions of reference apps, it is starting to look at the reference app performance in a device as well as its ability to execute features and use cases. So I think most people are trying to use them to ensure a level of performance is met across the set of devices in their market, especially if they're using it within a conformance and logo regime. I do think that it's got to be very clearly specified what that performance criteria is expected to be. And that can either be done in documentation, it doesn't have to be done in the app itself, but it can be easily done in terms of apps that measure the speed of a certain transition. And HbbTV has sort of dabbled in that a little bit. If you think about the targeted advertising feature, the performance requirements specified in the independent spec for targeted advertising do set out rate of transition that is measured by the test environment. So yes, I think performance is implicit when you start talking about using applications more completely in this kind of way, but it is very specific to the specific app and the specific platform, what that performance might be.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. I'd like to also welcome your colleague, Fan Zhang, to this Q&A session. And if there's anything that you'd like to add, Fan, you're of course welcome to comment on the questions and issues. Next one. Hi, one of the slides mentions incorporating reference apps into certification. Is the plan to use the current test tool, Ligada, to automatically test the reference app?
It can, and it will, and it does. It already automates testing the current HbbTV reference app. It launches it, and then the test app can be automated. It's not clear that the HbbTV certification, as defined by HbbTV's association's test suite, will include reference apps. That's the part of the future evolution of that Alex is talking about in his study mission, to see how that might work. And then how that will be incorporated within the test environment and the test tools, that's still to be worked out. But yes, Resilience Ligada test tool can test apps.
Okay, next one, -js MSE email mode in HbbTV Association reference app. Is there a reason not to use the newest -js version?
That's a good question to raise on the GitHub. We are keeping pace with -js. There are a lot of challenges around making sure that the app works on as broad a range of devices in the market as possible. So the intention with that reference app is to get broad coverage of the features across a range of devices from different years. So that may be why the very newest version isn't deployed, because it doesn't work as well on some legacy devices. It may be that simply that's only in the testing instance. I haven't looked into the detail of this. So it's a good question to raise on the GitHub issue tracker for the developers of the reference app to answer directly.
Yep, that's a good tip. Next one, when changing modes, e.g. from HbbTV 1.5 to -js MSE email mode, the reference app is redirected and reinitialized. What if we want to use two mods in the same app? Are you planning to show how to use, for example, object HTML tag for HbbTV 1.5 mode with video tag from MSE email mode, depending on which screen it started?
So I think both this and the next question are better handled in raising GitHub issues on the reference app. They're a little bit more detailed to have a long conversation about here, and they're very specific to that HbbTV reference app implementation. So I suggest the author of these questions raises GitHub issues for each of these specifically in the issue tracker for the reference app, and then the development team can get back to you on those.
I think this makes most sense. Mark, would you like to add anything?
No, to be honest, I was reading ahead on the questions. So
okay, next one. What is the reason of using multiple HTML tags in MSE email -js player? For example, main video tag for streams, two for ads, and another object tag for broadcast. Isn't it better to have one container and swap tags to have and use only one at a time? Who would like to answer that one?
Did that come out of Mark's session?
Does that apply to? I don't think that, because we don't use that, so I don't think it applies to to our player.
Okay. Maybe move on to the next one because we're running out of time. To Alex, this one is clear. Does Taco
Yep.
have any tests on key focus management with broadcast-related apps, which may be primarily important to avoid loss of control of apps by users?
Yeah, so that is a problem that we do face. Taco doesn't currently have a test like that, although it is something that we considered and briefly discussed, because as you say, you can easily lose focus when moving back and forth from an op app. In practice, that is tested via the integration with the BBC Connected Red Button app and the Freely op app. Key focus handling is quite specialist and depends very much on the exact build of the applications itself. So we kind of hold that as an option for future, but it really has to be tested on the real live applications, because those are the ones that have to manage the focus events.
Okay, Mark, last one is for you. You mentioned that the op app uses -js. However, I believe that the HbbTV spec states that the terminal's native video player should support dash directly. In your experience, is it a case of terminal native support being variable and a case of using -js for greater stability?
Exactly, that's exactly. You know, we're using quite advanced features in Dash, and we find that a way to standardize the playback is to use Dash.js and use MSC and EME.
Okay, excellent. So we've answered all the questions. So thank you to all the speakers for your very valuable insights. As usual, I'd like to remind you that the HbbTV Symposium is coming up 12th and 13th of November in Istanbul in Turkey. And there is currently the call for speakers open, which you might have seen. And if you haven't checked the HbbTV website or the trade press, there you see also the core topics of this year's symposium. So if you're considering joining or even holding a speech, please let the HbbTV Association know. There's a link to the form where you can submit your application for a speech. Also, as usual, if you have ideas for further webinars, you're very welcome to submit them by email to webinar@hbbtv.org or follow the HbbTV activities on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for watching this live session, and have a great summertime, and we welcome you back to the next edition of the HbbTV webinar series in due course. Thank you very much, take care, and goodbye.
Thank you.